Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. What's going on? It is great to have you with me. The Minnesota Vikings, once again, lost in a one-score game. Who here is surprised? Now, when you got your fourth starting quarterback of the season, who is going to be your backup at best, who should have never saw the field, can't really say we're surprised. When you got a head coach who has coached 31 games. 31 games. 31 games. Okay. Now let's do the math. 11 plus 13 is 24. 24 out of 31. That's 3 out of 4. 75% of the time, Kevin O'Connell led teams have been in one-score games. So you can't really say you're surprised, can you? I don't know. Vikings lose 27-24 to the Cincinnati Bungles. Drops their record to 7-7. Still alive for the playoffs, though. Still alive for the division, technically. The Detroit Lions' magic number is 1. Any game they win or game the Vikings lose clinches the division for Detroit. We'll get into a little bit of that more later. But honestly, this season, there's so many things, so many ups and downs on this roller coaster where 1 minute you think, all right, they're 0-3 and then 1-4. Just go ahead and move on with the rest of your lives, right? And then they win a bunch of games in a row. And then they just struggle with teams that they had no business struggling with. Such is life as a fan of the Minnesota Vikings. Let's get some shout outs here. Let's move this around just a little bit. And go like that. I know my guy T-Bass was going to make an appearance. How would the Vikings fans feel if after hiring, ownership said we hired a man with no player? It's a valid point. We're going to talk about KOC a lot here, one way or the other tonight. That's for daggone sure. But shout out T-Bass. What's going on? You choose the slowest tight end on the team and keep sending him on deep routes and he's not getting open. Do you blame the personnel or decision-making? Same with the sneak. Okay. There's something to be said there too. We'll talk about it. Shout out Ryan. What's going on? Good to see you. Here's my pie chart. 49 to Flores and 51 to KOC. Mullins for the idiotic interception. So where's the Mullins percentage then if you've already got 100 to the coach and the D coordinator, Ryan? But good to see you. Shout out to the queen, the matriarch, Mary Fist. What's going on, Mary? Good to see you. Vikings fan 123. What's up? Start Jaron Hall. Hey, I've been on that train since Kirk Cousins went down. I said start him the rest of the season. And then I said, well, once he got concussed, as soon as he's ready, put him back in. I don't care about the rest, but I'm not the coach or the ownership. I'm just some guy on YouTube talking about my favorite team that I just want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before I die. I'm sometimes okay with short-term pain for long-term gain, but such is life. What's going on, Purple Papa? How you doing? I'm chilling, man. I'm just relaxing. Minnesota Wild down 3-0, then come back and tie it. And a minute later, they give up the go-ahead goal before I got up in here. So we'll see. We'll see what's going on with them. Vikings lose a one-score game, and who's surprised? Yeah, there you go. There you go. As much as I love the Vikings this season has been. Hold on. As much as I love the Vikings this season, they have the Well, that's one way to put it, I guess, Ryan. I don't know that I go that far, but line of the night so far. Shout out to In the Zone podcast. What's going on, Zone? Good to see you. Good to see you. I'm chilling, man. I'm chilling. I mean, good evening to you guys too. Absolutely. Purple Papa says Mullins is not ready to start. Well, he's as ready as he's ever gonna be. I mean, let's just make that clear. He's been in the league long enough. So, okay, Mullins is 51. Oh, I thought you said KOC. My bad. Oh, okay, yeah. Now I got it. Okay, I'm with you now. Do you trust Mullins for 2 games or something? No, I don't. Absolutely not. But this nonsense about we're not going to put Jaron Hall in and put him in a position where he won't be successful and hurt his confidence moving forward. We want to continue to develop him. That's coach speak for. I think Nick Mullins gives us a better chance to win right here, right now, 1 game at a time. And I'm not going to put Jaron Hall in, even if that might be the better choice for the long-term viability of this team to see what we have in this kid. But like I said, they don't play for the long term. They play for today and today only. So That's just how it is. That's just how it is. We're gonna do the regular shout outs, but before we do that, once again, as always, all donations, super chat, or on the Cash App go towards Mini Me's trip to the Big Apple and to Washington, D.C. Any $5 increments, by the way, as most of y'all know, get you into a drawing for what? Prizes that Mary has donated, and we debuted it last night on Rapping for Days, but let's get it up here real quick. Ain't that something beautiful? Nice wall hanging of the Vikings and a couple of limited edition drinkware sets. I wish I qualified, but I don't. So I'll just leave it at that. So I know it's the holiday season, but anything you can do would be most appreciated. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I very much appreciate you guys. I really do. All right. You know how we start this. And if this is your first time here, and by the way, wipe your feet at the door. Hit that like button if you could, please. Hit that like button for me. We do shouts at the beginning to all the active and veteran members of our armed forces who fought for our freedoms and continue to fight that we keep them. Shout out as well to the family members who have to sacrifice time away from their loved ones so that we can be the greatest nation in the world. Shout out to the brave men and women who serve as our law enforcement, firefighters, and EMS, who in times of tragedy are the ones running towards the danger while the rest of us are trying to get away from it. Shout out finally to the doctors, nurses, surgeons, home health care providers, and frontline workers who in our time of medical needs are always there to do their level best to nurse us back to health. Your Super Bowl, ladies and gentlemen, is saving a life. So thank you so very, very kindly. The men and women that I have named here tonight in these three groups that I've shouted out, that I shout out at the beginning of every one of my shows, can at times work very thankless jobs. So I'm going to say thanks because y'all don't get thanked enough. How's everybody feeling tonight? We've now had 2 days to digest this monstrosity, which is just wash, rinse, and repeat. Opening week against Tampa Bay, second home game against the Chargers. I don't put Philly in that category. I know it was a one-score game, but it was a backdoor cover. I know it was a one-score game against Kansas City, but we were never truly. I mean, we scored a touchdown. Kansas City would have just came down to score. We all know that. We all know that. But go through the litany. Go through the litany. All of them. Chicago, Denver, Cincinnati. Like, seriously, it's the same thing over and over again. The definition of insanity. But at the same time, if we take that 30,000-foot view, should our expectations really be anything different? Should they? No, we'll talk about it tonight. Let me get a few more shouts on here. We got Grandpa Dave from Vikings First and SKOL. If you don't subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast aggregator, that is Vikings First and SKOL. Y'all know I make appearances there as well. Good show tonight, as always, with you and Tyler. Tyler had some really good breakdowns and little heated with this Kevin O'Connell discussion, but we'll see. We'll see what we got going on. Vikings fan, good to have the week off work. You are correct. Well, I'll say this. My favorite week to take off of work is the week between Christmas and New Year's. But either way, a week off of work is never a bad thing. Never a bad thing. Just about everything. Oh, yeah. There you go. Shout out, Vaughn. What's going on, Vaughn? Good to see you. Thank you kindly for joining me. Appreciate you guys. All right. Oh, there was one more. Oh, no, that's just me. Okay, here we go. Y'all know how we do this. It's the same song and dance. You know, if you're a Detroit Lions fan, you feeling good about yourself because everything happened right for the Detroit Lions this weekend. They won. The rest of the division lost. And as I said a moment ago, the Detroit Lions are just one game away from clinching their first ever NFC North title. So we're going to start with the NFC North roundup. The Detroit Lions absolutely mollywopped the Denver Broncos. They did what you're supposed to do. Score, and score more. Seriously, 42 points. When's the last time the Vikings? Somebody put it in the chat for me. When is the last time the Vikings scored 40? Was it that San Diego or Los Angeles? I think it was still San Diego at the time. Was it 2018 or 19? Is that the last time we scored a 40 burger? Somebody remind me. Anyway, Detroit Lions, we got our hands full next week. We got our hands full. And any of this hoping that we could win our last 3 games and hope Detroit loses to the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, it's going to be a tough game for the Lions against the Cowboys. But, boy, defense better figure something out. And so should the offense. The Chicago Bears, who cares? They're all but done. They had a Hail Mary attempt on the last play of the game in the guy's hands, and he drops it. Bear down, Chicago Bears. You're garbage. And, oh, by the way, who am I forgetting? Oh, I'm not forgetting. The Green Bay Packers lose at home to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At least when we played them at home, we points. And I love when ESPN just throws an ad on me and throws me off my game. Sorry about that. Anyway, Green Bay Packers, you're all but done. They've got to win all 3 games to get into the playoffs, and they're not going to because we got a date with them on New Year's Eve, and we know they're not going to win all 3. But that Packers defense, just when you thought they were good, they're not. They're terrible. And in fact, anytime I talk about the Packers losing, we always have a little something for them. Little Cesar Romero, as always, because Packers losing at home again by 2 touchdowns.
Oh, how delicious it is.
Indeed, Caesar, it is very delicious. So, like I said, the Bears are pretty much done. The Packers, they still have a shot, but they're pretty much done. So, again, it's just us and the Lions. Now, as much as I don't want to see the Lions win the division, because what does that really say about you? Better than it be the Packers. Better it being them. So, we'll sort of take it. If not us, then them. All right, we're going to get right into the first topic of the evening here. And, of course, where did it go? See, these things didn't do the way I was supposed to. All right. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. I know Kevin O'Connell was on the thumbnail. He's the headliner. But let's talk some positivity before we get into this tried and true, all this talk about KOC. The skill position players yesterday, Saturday, absolutely showed out. And let's give some props. Number 1 to the guy on the screen here, Ty Chandler. 23 carries for 132 yards. Why did we wait this long? Now, I get it. Kevin O'Connell in his press conferences were saying, well, if we had put Ty Chandler in right at the beginning of the season, he wouldn't have done as well as he did because he's been progressing and he's been learning. I buy that to a point that, yes, he needed to get, lathered up a little bit, but shouldn't have waited until this long. Shouldn't have waited this long. And I get it. Kevin O'Connell was forced to do it because Alexander Mattison was out. Okay. So I'm not sure, Kevin. Maybe just get this guy a few more touches. And again, in his press conference today, he's talking about, Alexander Mattison, he might very well easily be back, and we're going to have to figure out how to integrate these guys. And we still want to see Ty Chandler, be active. No, stop. It's real simple. Ty Chandler is the starting running back, and he should get the bulk of the carries. You want to give Alexander Mattison 8 to 12 touches, whether they be rushes or a couple of passes, that's fine. But there should be no 50-50 business. There should be no Alexander Madison's going to get his job back as the starter. No, I'm not listening to that. And I get it. Cincinnati is just an okay run defense. And here's what I'm going to say. When the Vikings were running the ball and giving the ball to Ty Chandler, they were successful. When Kevin O'Connell decided, hey, no, I'm going to be pass happy. Few 3-and-outs here and there. Offense didn't run as smoothly. Only giving the guy the ball one time in your overtime possession after 100-some yards. Really? Help me understand that, ladies and gentlemen. Help me understand what in the world he was thinking. But having said that, the catchers, the receivers, and T.J. Hawkinson, 6 catches for Addison, 6 catches for Hawkinson. Jefferson was 7. Jordan Addison. People were saying, oh, has he hit the rookie wall? Oh, he hasn't scored a touchdown since Kirk Cousins got injured. Yeah. Okay. You lost Justin Jefferson as running mate, and then you lost Kirk Cousins. And all of a sudden, we're surprised that teams aren't throwing a lot of their coverage towards Jordan Addison. Well, guess what? Now that you have Justin Jefferson back, and Justin Jefferson, like I said, 7 catches, 84 yards, a rather pedestrian day by his standards, but it was enough to say, all right, Jordan Addison, welcome back. We talked about Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase being the premier matchup. The 2 old wide receivers from LSU won a national championship together. The story of the game was T. Higgins and Jordan Addison, if we're being honest with you. I'm not saying that Jefferson and Jamar Chase didn't do anything, but it was actually the secondary wide receivers yesterday. So can't really complain all that much when it comes to the skill position players. They did their part. Jordan Addison with that shoestring catch right off the ground as Nick Mullins is falling backwards. We're like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, whoa, go. And there was nobody around Jordan Addison after he beat the guy who dove for the ball. Nobody around him. So shout out to Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, and of course the aforementioned Ty Chandler. You guys absolutely did your jobs on Saturday. The rest, we'll talk about them here shortly. All right. Back to the chats here. Hit the reset button, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if this is your first time here. Help a brother out. Let's go. All righty. There's Vaughn. Got a house call from the doctor. Dr. Proto, what's going on? Good to see you. Thank you so kindly for joining. Addison was awesome. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Shout out to my pops. What's going on, Dad? Appreciate you. Merry Christmas to everyone. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and happy whichever holiday you celebrate, because this is America. We don't have just one thing. Celebrate whatever you want. It's all good. If you don't celebrate Christmas, guess what? You get the day off work too. So it's a win-win no matter which way you go. But thank you guys. I appreciate you so very, very much. Frozen, what's that's the thing about Purple Papa. He's like, give everybody a wrench. All right, I'll get you Frozen here in a second. Hold on just a minute here, but I digress. Chandler in charge. I like it, Purple Papa. I like it. Chandler, absolutely. Can we bench KOC? Well, we'll talk about it. And happy winter solstice. Thank you, Vikings fan 123. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. In the zone says leave Kevin O'Connell alone. We'll don't jump the gun here, ladies and gentlemen. Don't jump the gun here. All right, Frozen. You are officially Wrench Gang, as Rap would say. But anyway, next topic. Because we're going to fly through these tonight. I'm going to keep this under an hour. Really, I am. How many times have I said that? Oh, yes. All righty. A mixed bag from one Nick Mullins. On one hand, I want to say Nick Mullins played pretty well outside of 2 turnovers. Well, if you have to say outside of 2 turnovers, then did you really play well? Maybe not. Of course, you get the victory, then it all becomes irrelevant, but they didn't. Nick Mullins, 26-33 for 303 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Here's the thing. Nick Mullins did what you should expect out of Nick Mullins. He's a backup quarterback who into this game started 17 games and had a record of 5-12 in those games. Had 27 touchdowns and 23 interceptions. So it's really no surprise that he threw 2-2 in this game against the Cincinnati Bengals. The offense looked massively better than it did with Josh Dobbs. Massively. Again, just talked about all the pass catchers. Again, you have 20 catches between those 3 guys, Addison, Hawkinson, and Jefferson. Can't really say much else, but those turnovers were killer. We talked about Josh Dobbs and well, if he could just cut down his turnovers. This entire team, this entire season, what have we been saying? Oh, just don't turn the ball over and we win. Well, they turned the ball over twice. Yeah, they did get 1 interception themselves, but you still lost the turnover battle. So are we really surprised at the results of this game? We keep games close. And again, I'll get to the real part of that when I talk about Kevin O'Connell here later. But Nick Mullins has already been announced to be the starting quarterback this Sunday against the Detroit Lions. No real surprise there. I still would rather have home, but I'm going to have to give up the ghost at this point. Because even if the Vikings lose to the Detroit Lions, they're not technically eliminated. So, again, they'll go with Nick Mullins into the Green Bay game. And if they win the Green Bay game, then they just need to beat Detroit. And maybe Detroit's not playing for anything at that point. And maybe you squeak out a victory into the playoffs. But my overarching point is this. Nick Mullins did what he was supposed to do. It's unfortunate that he has 2 absolutely stupidly awful interceptions. The first one, some say maybe JJ cut the out the wrong way. Either way, throw it out the back of the end zone. Now, if it was an anticipatory throw where he's expecting Justin Jefferson to be somewhere and something gets messed up in the interim, okay, it just kind of is what it is. But how many times have we turned the ball over on the goal line this season? About 5 by my count. TJ Hawkinson, KJ Osborne, Justin Jefferson yesterday. That's 4. I think there was 1 more. But either way, it's one thing to turn the ball over. It's another thing to turn over the ball at the goal line. At the goal line. Seriously. We are the kings of self-inflicted wounds. Now, granted, I don't watch all the other teams. I barely watch anybody else outside of our division, unless it's on prime time. Got nothing better to do. But simply saying this, can we stop beating ourselves? If you lose to a team that is superior to you, it just is what it is. But even without our starting quarterback and Kirk Cousins and having Justin Jefferson miss pert near half the season, we're 7-7 and could easily be 10-2. Easily, if you just don't shoot yourself in the foot. Nick Mullins, try not to turn the ball over. The second interception, what in the heck are you thinking? You're going down. Even if you didn't throw it directly to a defensive tackle, it was a fumble. No, it never hit the ground. It was an interception. Just take the loss. Take the L on that play. There's nothing good that can come out of that because guess what? Even if it didn't, you would have had an intentional grounding and lost a couple more yards. When it's 3rd down and you're on your way down there and you're in the red zone or you're close enough, you're in scoring position, just take the sack. What was that? That was Tavares Jackson level stupid. That was Christian Ponder level stupid. So on one hand, I'm trying to give Nick Mullins the praise he deserves for having a 300-plus yard game, 2 touchdowns, and actually making the offense look competent, which it hadn't looked for a couple of weeks with Josh Dobbs. But again, butterfly effect. We can't just say, well, if we don't turn the ball over and even if we get just 2 field goals there, we win that game. Well, not necessarily. You got to remember that Cincinnati would have played it different had we had more points on the board. And maybe we win, maybe we don't still. Maybe it still does go to overtime. But Nick Mullins, you are a seasoned veteran. You are not a rookie. You should know. Protect points. Yeah, if it's second down and you can get away from them, fine. But either way, you're 3/4 of the way on your rear end and you're just going to throw the ball into your opponent's hands? Seriously? And we say whatever we want about Kevin O'Connell. As I said, I got a whole lot to say about that. But you can't blame Kevin O'Connell for those interceptions. And that's 6 points minimum, maybe even 14. Well, no, one was on third down. So somewhere between 6 and 10 points that you left on the table. That's on the players. On that, in those instances, that's on the players. Nick Mullins, please do what you do. You're a backup quarterback. Nobody expects you to be Kirk Cousins. Nobody expects you to be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts or anybody else that's a top 10 quarterback. We just need you to do what you can. No more, no less. Yes, we'll talk about the defense shortly. If you had told me going into this game we would have scored 24 points, I would have said it was about a 90% chance we win with how well our defense was playing. And I got something for them in a moment too. But for right now anyway, Nick Mullins, mixed bag. So many good things. It's like any other experience in life. You know, if you have one bad experience with your cell phone carrier, it takes 10 good experiences to kind of even it out. And if you have 10 good experiences, it only takes one bad one to even it out. Yeah, Nick, you did a lot of good things yesterday. Don't get me wrong, but 2 critical errors. Can't afford it. And as I said, Detroit's magic number is now 1 for the division. The Vikings need to win 2 out of their last 3 to shore up a playoff spot. 3 out of 3 would absolutely guarantee it. But boy, oh boy, we have no margin for error. No more margin for error. When you kick away Tampa Bay, the Chargers, the Bears, the Broncos, and yesterday, you got no margin for error now. So we'll see. We'll talk a little bit more in the playoff roundup at the end, but come on, Nick. We got to be better than that. We can't have dumb turnovers. If you get blindsided because your offensive line let you down, okay, that's one thing. But come on, dude, throwing an interception on your way down into a defensive tackle's chest. What in the world are you thinking? All right, back to the comments. Let's see what you guys got for me. Shout out James in the building. We do lead the league in turnovers, or we're very close to it. We're either worst or second to worst. I haven't looked it up, but it doesn't matter. Again, you have had, it was 24 through, you got 26 now. You got 26 in 14 games. That's almost 2 a game. It's almost 2 a game. It's amazing that they're 7-7 with that many turnovers. For everything we want to say bad about KOC right now, and some of it is reactionary, and now that we've had 48 hours to digest it and kind of calm down a little bit, I'm going to say this. Now, you can make the argument that turnovers are systemic because of lack of coaching. You can make that argument all you want. There's some truth to that, but it's on the players too. It's definitely on the players too. So we'll see. Shout out G-Mac. What's going on, Greg? Mullen should have also had a pick. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He got lucky on it. Thank you for reminding me of that, G-Mac. He absolutely should have had 3 interceptions. That dude was just a half second early, and boy, oh boy, how that would have turned that game. We wouldn't have had to worry about overtime. Wouldn't have had to worry about a 3rd and short and 4th and short. Think about that. Yeah. I stand by what I said, though. It's like, okay, what do you expect? Can't expect him to be more than what he really is. All right, Frozen, what you got? Nick Mullins is our most terrible guy. I don't care about the box score, the worst defense in the league on our day of receivers, and line decided to start playing again. Yeah, there's some truth to that, Frozen. I can't argue with you. Can't argue with you at all. I'd love to, but I wouldn't. Mullins did okay for a back. That's what I'm saying. He wasn't great. He wasn't spectacular. Borderline kind of bad, but he did okay. And that's the thing. Just okay. That's what we're relegated to at this point, is to being just okay and hoping for the best. We're going to get curb stomped on the Lions. KOC typically finds a way to keep it close, which is a good thing and a bad thing. We'll talk about it. Shout out, nephew. What's going on? Sub up JJ Vikings if you haven't subbed the young man up already. Good to see you, nephew. Good to see you as well. I bet you AP had at least 30 reds. Well, I don't know that it was 30, but he had a lot. He had a lot. The team we keep losing to is the Vikings. Very, very well stated, Dr. Proto. Very well stated. Very well. Frozen says he is Daryl. Okay. All right. So I like this one from James. Let's be honest. Do we really think Joseph would have nailed all three? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Although the two off the interceptions were pretty close. Again, if we convert that fourth down, the game's not over yet. We're still in business, but it would have been such a Vikings thing for us to pick up that and then have Greg Joseph miss. It really would have been, but would have loved to have seen him at least have the opportunity. But I digress. Can't argue with him. Shout out Malik. What's going on, Malik? Good to see you. We going quarterback in the first round. We moving ever staying put. What do you think? I think it depends on what happens on these last three games. If somehow the Vikings are capable of winning these last three games, and they're capable of losing these last three games. Okay, so yeah, worst case from a record standpoint, they lose. Yeah, we have a top 10 pick. Then I could conceivably see them moving up a few spots. If we win 2 out of 3, we get to the playoffs. Well, then the highest pick we can have is 21, and I don't see them moving up at that point. But that's part of the reason, Malik, while I have said repeatedly, I want to see Jaren Hall. One, because I think he probably won't have as good a command as Nick Mullins of the offense, but he does have some scrambling mobility, that sort of thing. And I want to know what we got in the kid. And we're not going to know. We're not going to know. So we'll just leave that one at that. All right. What you got, T-Bass? Well, when you're surviving with smoke and mirrors, sooner or later, somebody's going to pull back the curtain and find out who Oz is. No? Yeah. There's that. Mullins is a pilot who gets credit and efficiency stats for some beautiful flying before he crashes the plane 5 minutes from the landing. That's a good one, Frozen. That is pretty good, actually. Before landing in the air. Yes. I like that. I'm going to use that one on Thursday. I'm going to use that one. Yes, we're going to get there. We're almost there. We're almost there. Do not get me started on this ridiculousness of this tush push. But all right, what do we got next? All right. So as much as people want to talk about KOC, we got to talk about this disastrous fourth quarter and overtime defense. This defense had played so well for the last few weeks. What was it, 14 straight quarters or something without giving up a touchdown? Now, I said at the time, mind you, playing the Bears, playing the Raiders, playing the Broncos. Broncos, they're okay. And then they got mollywopped on Saturday too. But what I said at the time was, yes, you go into any other team's building and shut them out, praise to you. But it was the Vegas Raiders. They're terrible. And yeah, the next week they come out and put up 63 points. 63. But anyway, let's keep in mind who our defense has been playing. I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm just calling it as I see it. But yesterday, and I will say, the offense should have done more at the time to make a bigger lead so that you didn't have to think about this. Having said that, yes, it's Jamar Chase, it's T. Higgins, it's Tyler Boyd and company, and Joe Mixon. But touchdown. Like, seriously? Come on, guys. Get one stop. Mekhi Blackmon, you're in this picture. Why? Because you gave up on the play. That's not Brian Flores' fault, and it's certainly not Kevin O'Connell's fault that Mekhi Blackmon is just standing there looking like his guy had already intercepted the pass. If he had gone over there and kept playing, maybe T. Higgins doesn't have the ability to wrap the ball over the goal line plane and call it a touchdown. Now, would the Bengals have scored in there invariably on the next couple of plays? Maybe not. The Vikings have stopped a team first and goal from the one on occasion. So it's no guarantee. Now, it might not have made a hill beans worth the difference. But honestly, as I said with Rap on Sunday, the Minnesota Vikings defensive backs need to have one of the quarterbacks just go out after practice and play 500. so that when they see lollipops in the air, they figure out a way to learn how to knock the ball down. Or here's another thing to Evans in this particular instance. If you have a wide receiver, and this is only the 5th time this season I've said it, who is in the back of the end zone or on the sidelines, let him go catch the ball and then just knock them out of bounds. There is no push out rule anymore. The guy either lands in bounds or he doesn't. So if you are incapable of coming up with a knockdown or, heaven forbid, an interception because your timing is off on your jump, you lost sight of the ball, you lose sight of the ball, fine. Find the receiver, let him catch it in the air and knock him out. That's an incomplete pass. That is an incomplete pass. Why these defensive backs have still not figured out how to play jump balls is beyond me. I get it. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, they're tall wide receivers, just like when we had Moss and Carter and Jake Reed, who were all 6'3", 6'4". I get it. We used to have wide receivers like that could high point balls and out physical you and all those other good things. Absolutely. But seriously, you have an advantage now. As I said, use the sideline to your advantage. Let them catch. Don't hit them while the ball's in the air before they, go up for the ball. But as soon as that ball is within a foot of their hands, knock them out of bounds. And if you're not capable of doing that, then learn how to play the ball better in the air. Brian Flores, we've given you all the flowers in the world, and you've deserved them because this defense has carried this offense for the last month, shutting out the Vegas Raiders because you could only score 3 points. That victory is all on the defense. Yeah, some people say, well, they gave up the lead against Denver. Yeah, but again, how many turnovers did we have? And should the Vikings offense have had more points on the board to not put you in that position? And were you only really in position to possibly steal that game because the defense kept you in it? Yes, absolutely. I'll say that. But not a good look. If you gave up 14 points in the fourth quarter, because mind you, the first one came right at the start of the fourth quarter where they had pretty much done the damage towards the end of the third quarter, but it is what it is. Okay, you give up one. Okay, that's going to happen. You weren't going to have this ridiculous no touchdown streak last for forever. This ain't the 85 Bears and the 2000 Ravens. But stop the bleeding at some point. Stop the bleeding. Yeah, you're up 17-3. There's no reason. A 2-touchdown lead against another backup quarterback. We can talk about the symmetry of this team offensively. Chase, Higgins, Boyd, Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson. Yeah, they're pretty comparable. And I said going into the game, you give a slight edge to Joe Mixon. Well, Ty Chandler said, hold on, wait a minute. You're not going to sell me short like that. So all 4 of those positions, relatively equal. And guess what? Both teams had backup quarterbacks in there. Both teams did. You let Jake Browning. Jake Browning is mediocre. He's not all that good. He couldn't beat out Kellen Mond or Sean Mannion or whoever else the other guy was that we had at the time. And you let him get 21 points in the fourth quarter. Come on, y'all. I don't want to give too much. I don't want to heap too much blame on Brian Flores, but I can't let him off the hook either. I mean, again, I'll give him somewhat of a, hey, all right, you had a bad quarter. You've been keeping us in games anyway. But my goodness, against a backup quarterback, you just completely fold like a cheap suit. You fall apart like a cheap suit and fold like a cheap lawn chair. It's so bad. I get it. Your offense did enough if you take away the turnovers. But again, we can't keep saying they did enough if you take away the turnovers. At some point, that is who you are. And you're not going to be able to get away with that against the Detroit Lions. Boy, oh boy, their offense, when their offense is on, they can play with anybody. They could play with San Francisco if their offense is on. If their offensive line is giving Jared Goff that much time, kind of sounds like somebody else we know, like Kirk Cousins. I'm not saying Goff is better than Cousins. I'm saying they're very, very similar. You give them time, they can pick you apart. And they got weapons. So defensively, come next Sunday, you're going to have to bring all the equipment to just try to keep these guys under 30 points. In offense, you're going to have to hold up your end of the bargain. We got any chance of getting into these playoffs, whether it's the division or not. I mean, again, if I had to make a prediction right now, I say we beat Green Bay for sure, and we hope to get one against Detroit. I think the odds of us winning all 3 of these games is pretty low. Not impossible. So I'm not saying all hope is lost, but what I am saying is you got to tighten up that. Get yourself some wrenches. We just gave Frozen North a wrench. Get yourself some wrenches and tighten it up. And if you give up some scores in the middle of the game, okay, That's life in the big city in the NFL. You're not going to shut out people. I'm not saying how in the world did they let them in the end zone. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But for anybody that wants to throw all of this on KOC, we got to throw some darts at Brian Flores too. This ridiculous notion of, oh, Brian Flores should immediately report. Okay, we'll get to that here in the next segment. But, let's solo our role on firing KOC and putting Brian Flores as the head coach, because Brian Flores didn't do any better yesterday either. Not in the fourth quarter. Not in crunch time. So hopefully he'll be able to look at the tape and say, all right, this is what we need to improve on. Well, what you need to improve on is you need to get a better pass rush. Yeah, you got a couple of sacks yesterday. Excuse me. I keep saying yesterday. I keep forgetting that it was Saturday. Yeah, you got a couple of sacks. You got 4 sacks. That's good. But in crunch time, where were you guys? And by the way, almost forgot. How many 3rd and 20+ conversions did we give up? 3? You got them into 3rd and 21, and you give up the conversion multiple times. So, yeah, this isn't just on the offense. This isn't just on Nick Mullins, and this isn't just on KOC. We got to throw a little shade to the defense as well. All right. I went a little bit longer than I wanted to there. Let's hit that reset button here one more time. Hit the like button. If you don't already, hit the subscribe button as well. Help me grow this community up. And let's see what you guys got for me. You guys got anything good for me? I bet you do. I know I got some shouts that I got to get to for some people that just got in here. So where did I leave off? All right, nephew. I know that was 10 minutes ago. I don't know if you're still here, but have a good night. Good to see you, young man. Stay in school. All that good stuff. Stay in school, yo. Yeah, why not see Hall? But we should know by now KOC won't do that. It takes a few weeks to catch up. Well, yeah. On top of the owners probably would be like, no, we're not doing that. The owners play for today too. They want to get a playoff berth more than anything. They don't care about long-term viability nearly as much as they should. I mean, again, I've been saying it for weeks, but no, that's not going to happen. The only way Jaron Hall gets in is due to injury, and certainly we're not pulling for that, obviously. But no, that isn't going to happen. Even if they lose to Detroit, Nick Mullins could throw 5 interceptions against Detroit, and we could lose 42-10, and he'd still be the starter New Year's Eve against the Packers, I think, because they'd still be alive for it. They're only going to play Jaron Hall at this point if it's over. So shout out Mr. Tonic. What's going on? Like I said, defense has bailed this team out for 2 months, and the offense hasn't been good at all. Yeah, failures. Totally agree. What's going on, Gary? Good to see you. Good to see you as always. Thank you so very kindly for joining me. Could Blackman have knocked the ball into the end zone to do? Well, maybe anything but just standing there thinking that your teammate had already made a play. Do something. That's all I am saying is do something. All right, one more reset button, just so y'all know. We still getting matching donations for Mini Me's trip over to the Big Apple, as well as to New York City. Where is it? There it is. And a reminder, any $5 donations get a entry into the drawing for the prize donated by Miss Mary. Here it is this week. Again, we got a new one each week. Nice limited edition drinkware set, as well as a nice wood art for wall hanging. Anything you guys can do, I appreciate you. Let's get back to your comments, though, because that's why I read all the comments, or as many of them as I can, because I appreciate you guys helping me out here. I could sit up here and talk on the mic all night, but that'd be kind of boring. All right, so some hellos and all this other good stuff. Frozen North, what do you got? I think we should all be okay saying that Flores has given our best defense in a long time, and that said it was the worst game. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Again, don't take this as me saying that I'm out on Brian Flores. There is nobody else in the league that I would want as my defensive coordinator right now. He doesn't have a whole lot of talent on the defense. Yeah, we got guys in Harrison Smith who we know, but he's not in his prime. Yeah, you still got Daniil Hunter, and we love what we see out of Ivan Pace. And hopefully Jordan Hicks will be able to come back. Now, I seriously doubt he's going to play against Detroit. I said it for weeks that the first game I even expect him to possibly be back would be the Green Bay game. And Ivan Pace has done a pretty good job, I dare say, with the green dot. And yes, our defense might be able to take another step back up if we get Jordan Hicks back. But sans that, what do you really got? Yeah, Metellus and Bynum, did we hear their names all that much yesterday? Yeah, Evans got an interception on a terrible throw by Browning, but I didn't hear a whole lot from the safeties yesterday. So Brian Flores is, as T-Bass said earlier, doing this with a lot of smoke and mirrors and scheme, and that's only going to get you so far. But I agree that he's given us the best defense we've had in the KOC era, and probably the last year, maybe 2 of the Zimmer era. But yeah, that was definitely one of their worst games. I don't know if that game's worse than Philadelphia, though. I don't know if that's worse than Philadelphia because Philadelphia was pretty bad. James, our corners can't cover bigger wide receivers. No. Yeah. Gordon Sutherland had a good, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I said it at that time too. He's in the back of the end zone. Let him catch it and knock him out. Excuse me. Knock him out as soon as he catches the ball. Don't hit him before the ball gets there, but knock him out once he touches the ball. And if he comes down out of bounds, incomplete pass. What's going on, James? What's going on? KOC messed up. Okay, I'm gonna get to the tush push. Don't believe that. I've got a few things to say on that. Well, he is off injured reserve. He is in the 21-day practice window where they have 3 weeks. And granted, it's the last 3 weeks of the season anyway, but he is available and he could play. His time on injured reserve has been served, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he is ready and fully healthy. But could he be back this week? He could. I'm just saying that I think that they're going to hold him out, and I don't think he's going to be ready. I hope I'm wrong because we're going to need all the equipment. It is all hands on deck against the Detroit Lions and their offense. But all right, Purple Papa, I'm a little confused. You said rap. Please accept my man again. I didn't see rap in here. So if I missed him, I missed him. I didn't see him in here. Shout out Gary in the building with the 1999 super chat. I appreciate you, Gary. I would play the horn, but again, my internet's still kind of getting messed up every time I play a sounder on there, so I'm going to give you the horn. But shout out Gary for the 1999 super chat and the 4 entries into the drawing. All right, Purple Papa, let's see what you got before I get to my last topic. Are we ready for the turn of the microphone scene? I don't know. At this point, Lewis Cine is so out of sight, out of mind for me. He just really is. I'm not trying to be whatever about it. I'm just kind of over him at this point because anything we get out of him is found money, and it might not even be found money. It might not even be that. Okay, the moment y'all been waiting for. Kevin O'Connell. What is really fair? On one hand, when I came out on Vikings First and SKOL for the post-game show live at the 2-minute warning, I came out hot on Kevin O'Connell. Now, let me be clear right off the jump here. Kevin O'Connell, the notion that he should be fired is beyond preposterous. So if you're looking for me to come on the mic and say fire KOC, it's not going to happen. I'm going to criticize and I'm going to nitpick a lot of his choices and a lot of his choices that I believe have put this team in a position to lose games that they otherwise should have won. But what I'm not going to do is be crazy enough to say that a coach in his first 31 games who has gone 20-11, the fastest coach to get to 20 wins in Vikings history, that includes Bud Grant, that includes Dennis Green, should be fired. Listen, he's working with his 4th quarterback. Okay. The other thing that I said on Saturday's postgame show was it would have almost been better after Kirk Cousins went down if the Vikings just started losing big. Not so much from a tank, get a better draft pick standpoint, but from the standpoint of we'd be less disappointed in these close losses. These close losses for our sanity and for us thinking and how to evaluate this team is almost worse. If we had lost to the Broncos by like 21 points, we would say, okay, we don't have our starting quarterback. We don't have JJ. We got backups all over the place. We got Josh Dobbs, whatever. You would say, you'd throw up your hands and say, okay. If you lost to the Vegas Raiders by 7 to 10 points, you'd say, okay, same thing. The real issue from a fan standpoint, for me anyway, is we're losing these games close, even with our 4th quarterback, even with missing Justin Jefferson for pert near half the season, as we said. That's mind-boggling because you're just right there. You're so close, even with this. Kevin O'Connell does deserve some credit for the fact that this team is 7-7, despite losing Kirk Cousins, despite not having Justin Jefferson, as well as not having Jordan Hicks, who was probably the heart and soul of the defense before he went down. So on one hand, we do need to give him some credit for that. How many other coaches? You go to any coach, hey, you're 4-4, you're halfway through the season, and you just lost your starting quarterback. If Andy Reid and the Chiefs were 4-4 and they lose Patrick Mahomes, what is a reasonable expectations? Are you going to say that they're going to have the same expectations that they would with Patrick Mahomes? Am I saying Kirk Cousins is Patrick Mahomes? No, I just use one as a starting quarterback. Take any team in the NFL and you lose your starting quarterback, whether you have an elite quarterback or whether you have a mediocre quarterback or whether you have a bad quarterback. Now, if you have a bad quarterback, you don't have expectations to begin with. But look at the Bengals. Same record as us going into the game. Now they've got one more win. Okay. They've done a decent job without their starting quarterback. If the Bills lost Josh Allen, what would they be? So all I'm saying is this. He's held this thing together the best way he can. Now, does that mean that I'm not going to point out all of the things about this game on Saturday that I didn't like from Kevin O'Connell and how it mirrors a lot of the things that I haven't liked about him all season and frankly last season too? Oh, no. He's going to get his comeuppance in just a moment. But what I'm saying is, what were your expectations when we lost our two best players for points in time, one of which our quarterback who is gone for the year? Were your expectations that at this point of the season, we were 4-4 with Kirk Cousins and we're 3-3 since then? Were you expecting to go 6-0, 5-1? Yeah, it's mind-boggling because you could have won all 6 of those games and could be 10-4 right now. You could have. There was no game in this 6-game stretch that you didn't have an opportunity to win. But be that as it may, you still should have some reasonable expectations. Now, I say all that to say this. Kevin O'Connell, what the heck were you thinking? Now, I get it. A quarterback sneak is a decent play on 3rd and inches and 4th and inches. I don't have an issue. I know I came out hot on Saturday and said I didn't like the calls, but having cooled down and having looked at it again, okay, I don't mind a quarterback sneak. What I do mind, and this will never change, I don't care how many times I look at this. I don't care the fact that Garrett Bradbury got blown up on the 4th down play. You're going to try a quarterback sneak with the brotherly shove, the tush-push business with the smallest guy on the field. And this ridiculous nonsense about, well, I wanted to stay in 3 wide receivers because I wanted to catch the Bengals off guard and not allow them to substitute their big package defensively. What? That's a cop-out. That's just total crap. You go with your best players for whatever play you're calling. You don't worry about what the other team's doing. You don't allow the other team to dictate to you what you want to do. So if you're at the goal line, at let's say the 5-yard line, and you had your big package in because the play before you were on the 1-yard line and you lost 4 yards, are you going to run a pass play on 3rd and goal from the 5 with 3 tight ends because that's what the personnel was that you had on in the previous play and you're trying to catch those guys off guard? No, you don't. You do your substitutions. And if you're going to run a quarterback sneak, and they had run a couple of quarterback sneaks earlier in the game and they were successful with it. Now, I will say this, the quarterback sneak in the middle of the 2nd or 3rd quarter is a little different than it is in overtime. And yeah, you did get that nice swing pass to Ty Chandler down to the 1-yard line because they thought you were going to run a quarterback sneak. So we got to give Kevin O'Connell praise for that too. But again, use Josh Oliver, use CJ Ham, bring in Oli Udo, bring in one of your backup offensive linemen to be the one to push Nick Mullins. And you use Brandon Powell. I weigh more than Brandon Powell does. Okay, not as athletic, not as strong, can't squat as much, can't bench press as much, but we're talking about an NFL wide receiver who is 5'9", 180 pounds soaking wet. And that was the guy you not once, but twice tried to run the tush push with. If you were going to try to do that the first time with this ridiculous notion of catching them off guard, I don't buy it, but all right, I would accept it if the next time around you came in and did something different. You either run the tush push again with one of those guys I mentioned, CJ Ham, Josh Oliver, etc. Or here's an idea. You can fake the dive and then pitch it out to Ty Chandler because everybody is sucked into the middle, kind of like it was on that pass play to Chandler I mentioned just a moment ago. And you could do a toss play, and he's only got to outflank one guy. So even if he is 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, he's got to outflank one guy for 5.5 yards. And guess what? He might have broken it off for a big gainer, maybe even a touchdown, because he's going to be one-on-one out in space. Fake the dive, toss it out, something. But to run the same play twice with the same guy pushing him, I don't understand it. Is that the reason they lost the game? Per se, it's not the only reason they lost the game. Is it one of the plays and one of the play calls that I don't understand that contributed to it? Yes. Now, here's where I will say KOC deserves some criticism. The problem I have with KOC is he's even worse than Mike Zimmer was at keeping the game close. As I said, he has coached 31 games, 11-0 last year, 6-7 this year. 24 out of his 31 games. 3 out of 4 games are one-possession games. You should have stepped on their throats, and this is not the first time. You have had the New Orleans Saints. You were up 27-3, and it still came down to one possession. Put a team away. He's the exact opposite of what he was last year. Mind you guys, what did we do all last year? First couple of drives, we'd have 7 to 10 points on the board almost every single game. Every single game. We would have 7 to 10 points. We score a touchdown on the first possession or kick a field goal and then a touchdown on the second possession. Then we disappear for 2.5 quarters until the fourth quarter came around. And what typically happened? We were in desperation mode, and Kevin O'Connell was aggressive. Now, again, he could afford to be aggressive last year because he had Kirk Cousins. He doesn't have it right now. I understand that. But with that being said, don't wait until you're desperate to finally kick it up into third gear or into fifth gear, as they say. Be aggressive early, be aggressive often. And when you have the opportunity to put a team out of its misery, to remove all hope that they're going to stay in a ball game, do it. Last year, you were ultra aggressive when you needed to be. This year, you're ultra conservative. Pick a lane. Which one is it? Are you going to be aggressive or are you going to be conservative? And I get it. There are times where you don't want to be over aggressive. I understand that. I'm not saying be aggressive every single opportunity that you have. But honestly, put a team away. Mike Zimmer was the king of it. Mike Zimmer has been demoted to Duke, and Kevin O'Connell is now the king of one possession, keep it close, and hope you win in the end. And it's unnecessary. You didn't. Now, again, is it his fault that they've had as many turnovers? Some would say, well, that's on coaching. I would say, well, that's kind of on the players for not hanging on to the ball or making bad passes, that sort of thing. But it's the systemic nature of these turnovers that concerns me with this head coach. It is the systemic and repeatable opportunities that have been lost. Last year, we can talk all we want about how great it was with all these fourth quarter comebacks and these one-score wins. As I've said, this past Saturday was the 52-week mark of that Indianapolis Colts come from behind victory. I was in the building with my daughter, a dear friend of mine who means the world to me, and her son. And it was the first game that her son and my daughter got to go. And at halftime, we're just like, why we bring him to this game? And then the rest is history. Every bit of luck that we got last year, well, it's coming back around this year. But I will still say, you can talk about a comeback all you want, but you put yourself in that big of a hole by not scoring any points. I remind people, 7 of those points came on a pick six in the Colts game, and 7 of them came on a block punt touchdown. That defense actually wasn't that bad in the Colts game. When you're down 33-0 at halftime, it kind of looks bad, obviously. But they had only given up 19 points, 1 touchdown, 4 field goals. And all I'm going to say is this, Kevin O'Connell, I don't understand it. And what I really don't understand, as I said, it's the same type of situations. You're putting yourself in a position, you're making itself more difficult for yourself. Now, I'll say again, do I think he should be fired? Absolutely not. That's crazy talk. But do I think he deserves a lot of criticism for kind of making the same mistakes repeatedly? Yes, I do. Does that mean I think that he should be on the hot seat going into next season? Absolutely not. He's on his 4th quarterback. So let's do a little give and take. What is really fair? It is absolutely fair to criticize. It is absolutely fair to question, not necessarily that he went for quarterback sneaks, but just the thought process of using the wide receiver. But there's been other times that jump pass by Dalvin Cook last year against the Detroit Lions. You're down 7. You're going into halftime. You could have tied up the score. And as it turns out, you're now down 21-7 at half because he wanted to hand the ball off to Dalvin Cook and have him do a jump pass. That's just dumb. That's not bad execution. That is a terrible play call. Even if it works, kind of like when Nick Mullins threw that ball to Jordan Addison in the end zone. That was a terrible pass. The result of it being a touchdown does not change the fact that it was a dumb decision and he got lucky. So all I'm going to say about Kevin O'Connell to wrap this particular portion up, he absolutely deserves criticism. He absolutely deserves to be like, what are you doing? But deserves to be fired? No. And I get it. We all came out hot after that game because once again, it was a game where we lost our 3rd one since losing Kirk Cousins that we absolutely probably should have won had we not shot ourselves in the foot. But to say Kevin O'Connell needs to be fired, I'm sorry. I'm not listening to that. I'm not listening to that. For now. And probably not for the rest of the year. They could go 0-3, and I'd probably say the same thing, no matter how they lose. They could lose 3 close games again, and I'll still say, yeah, he does have some armor that he doesn't have Kirk Cousins and that he is now on his fourth quarterback. But I'm sorry, we got a little too aggressive on Saturday for anybody. And I didn't say fire. I said it. I questioned him and I didn't like his calls, but I no way saying he should be fired. And I stand by that. There is nothing about this season that would even come remotely close to suggesting that Kevin O'Connell needs to be fired. If he loses the last last 3 games, he will then be 20-14 over his first 2 seasons. So no, we're not talking about replacing Kevin O'Connell. Now next year, we'll see how that goes. It's a whole new season at that point, and we'll reevaluate at that point. But no, I'm not firing Kevin O'Connell, and I'm not listening to it. All right, let's hit the reset button, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I know I'm way, way behind on the comments here because I went a little bit longer there. And I've got 4.5 minutes to get out of here under an hour. It's probably not going to happen. We all know. We all know that ain't going to happen. Okay, fair enough. Seldom seen as missing child poster on locker room wall. KLC is a fraud, but y'all always say next year don't make it. Oh yeah, I'll definitely listen to that. All right, T-Best, what do we got? Vikings PR wants to call him a mastermind and a quarterback whisperer. Then yes, he should be fired because he's not that. Well, the PR department is always going to spin. They're shrills for the owners. We all know that. I mean, yeah, that's how he was presented. And I would say he's definitely not a mastermind or a whisperer as of yet. But, you know, the label that PR gives, you know, I've always taken with a grain of salt because, you know, what are they going to say? Hey, we hired a coach and, you know, he's okay. Now, of course, they're going to pump him up a little bit. But I do like this one. I want a head coach or player who isn't doing. It's when you start seeing people. Well, yeah, I'll grant you that. And yes, I don't like that he held on to Alexander Madison being the starter for as long as he has. And I don't like the fact that he's chosen to go with Nick Mullins over Jaron Hall. But that's what coaches do. Like I said, I'm not letting him off the hook. I don't like a lot of his play calls at times. And yes, some of it is execution. As I said, it's not KOC's fault that Garrett Bradbury got blown up. I do think it's KOC's fault for calling the same play twice with the same 5th string wide receiver who's 180 pounds. That part I will absolutely say, hey, what are you thinking? All right, doctor, what you got? I'm okay with his record and believe he will get better. Hopefully he does. I don't know. Hopefully. We'll see. But again, we'll see what he's got at quarterback next year too. Because we all know my opinion of Kirk. Like him, don't love him. My opinion, KOC is a very good motivator and the players like him, but he obviously doesn't know the X's and O's like we need. He needs an offensive coordinator. I can listen to that. He's not going to give up play calls this year. Maybe he does next year, but nothing's going to change for the rest of this year. But perfectly fine with giving more time and demand Vikings ownership admit they hired somebody with no. Yeah, that part I'll give you all day, T-Bass. All day I'll give you that one. That one I'll definitely give. I know I'm about 10 minutes behind. What's up? Shout out to Evil. What's going on, my brother? Good to see you. Take a quick look. Choose that we're calling it variable we hired compared to who's doing pretty good. Yeah, that's true. A little too long. That part I will say, yes, a little too long. You ain't funny too evil. No. Maybe 2 of them together. Shout out Lemmy in the building. What's going on? Why not give it to Jano? Here's having a breakout game, so not right. Oh, I totally agree. I mean, I think you put this in there before I said it, but yes. Ty Chandler getting 1 carry in overtime. That one I will put on KLC. I don't know what you're thinking. You got a guy that's run for over 120 yards. Why you're not giving Ty Chandler the ball. And as I said, if you look at the Vikings drives Saturday, keep forgetting. They were more successful when they ran the ball with Ty Chandler. He was ripping off 7, 8, 9-yard runs at a time. I'm not saying every time. Of course, there was a couple 2s or 3s here and there. But the Vikings offense was effective with Nick Mullins getting the ball to the wide receivers and tight ends when they had established the run. Why he went away from it in overtime, I do not know. And that's another thing I will say. It's like, seriously. That's just not going to happen, Purple Pop. It would be nice, but that's just not going to happen. It's the team as a whole, the organization. Something has to change around here, year in, year out. Oh, well, yeah, that's a whole nother conversation, Lemmy. That is the Vikings mentality. Be just good enough to be relevant at the end of the year and hope you squeak into the playoffs and then play well, if you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. All due respect to my guy, Tyler. Love Tyler. Love working with him. Well, The Pittsburgh Steelers in 2006 were a 10-6 team that were the 6th seed and they won the Super Bowl. The Packers in 2010 were 10-6 and the 6th seed and they won the Super Bowl. Okay, that's 2 out of 56 Super Bowls. You want to play those odds? Oh, the Giants weren't very good. The Giants were an 11-5 wild card team in 2007 when they upset the undefeated Patriots. They were 11-5. The Cowboys were 13-3 that year, so they were the top wild card. Let's not pretend that the Giants were just some mediocre team. Yes, in 2011, they were 9-7. I can't remember if they were a wild card or if they won the division that year because the division was down. But the Giants had players on defense, and they had Eli. Eli, like if you want to compare Kirk to Eli, Kirk is hands down a superior quarterback, not just a better quarterback, a superior quarterback in the regular season. In the playoffs, Eli has this thing called clutch. How he does it, I don't know. But let's not bank on anything can happen. Well, the Eagles got to the Super Bowl last year only because San Francisco lost their quarterback. That's not entirely accurate. We don't know that. Yeah, the 49ers mollywopped them this season, but so what? So what? And they kept it within 3 points of Patrick Mahomes. All I'm saying is the notion of, a team could lose its quarterback. Yeah, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, it'd be Christmas all year round. If was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. You're going to go into it with the odds of just get in? How? In my lifetime, 44 years on this planet being a Vikings fan, this team is generally good, not great. Every 10 years, they go to one NFC championship game and lose. And the other 9 years of that decade, they probably have 4, maybe 5 playoff appearances. They have 1 or 2 bad seasons. And it's the same thing over and over again. In the years they don't make the playoffs, generally speaking, they get eliminated in the last week of the season or the second to last week of the season. So what? That's not consistency in my mind. That's mediocrity. So I agree with you, Lemmy. This whole organization, but it's been this way for decades. It ain't been this way for years. It's been this way for decades, year in and year out, decade in and decade out. But that's a whole nother conversation for the offseason, which is how are we going to be different? Or are we just going to do the same thing repeatedly that we've done for years? What do you want, mediocrity or winner? Thank you, Purple Papa. No, that's why I don't mind the notion of going in a different direction and, then we'll be worse than we were. Worse than mediocre? So what? If that means you have a better chance of getting past mediocrity. But I've gone down that spiel. I've gone down that spiel on. All right, let's see what you got, Mr. Tony. You just can't get behind Mr. INT starting again. Nick isn't the answer. I agree with you, Tony. I totally agree with you. Absolutely, totally agree with you. It's not even close. Nick Mullins is just who he is. He's a backup quarterback that is now 5-18. Yeah, he is what he is. Well, he gives us the best chance. If your best chance is getting behind Nick Mullins, then why not see what you got in the hall? I've said that for weeks. I totally agree. Totally agree. Can we please stop this fire KOC? Yeah, that part. Yeah, no, that's ridiculous. I'm worrying into the year with our worst 4 defensive opponents. It's going to keep making people think that our worst quarterback is our best. Yeah, maybe. I see where you're going, Frozen North. I mean, truth be told, do I think they can win all 3? They could. I put the chances of that at about 10 to 15%. Do I think they could lose all 3? Yeah, I'd say also 10 to 15%. So that leaves you with, 70, 80% chance of either going 2-1 or 1-2. All I care about is beating Green Bay. If we can beat the Lions once, get to the playoffs, even if we lose in the first round, okay, I guess. My expectations if they make the playoffs, maybe if you win the division and you host Green Bay, Detroit, or the Rams, maybe you can squeak out a home victory, just like you almost squeaked out a victory at home last year against the Giants. But after that, going on the road to Philly, going on the road to San Francisco, it's not going to happen. Love to be proven wrong. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, before we go any further, stop quoting me 1987 when the Vikings went on a ridiculous playoff run. The last time they actually won 2 playoff games in the same season, by the way. Well, the Vikings were 8-7 and they were the last team in and they got to the NFC Championship. We're not going to compare 1987, the rules of that league at that point in time before free agency, where you only had 5 playoff teams, 3 divisional winners and 2 wild card spots, to today that now has 7 teams getting in. First of all, that 8-7 team in 87 was really 8-4, because I'll remind folks, if you're not old enough to remember, that was a strike-shortened season. 3 of the games were played with replacement players, and the Vikings went 0-3 in those 3 games. So they were really 8-4 with their actual players. Yes, the New Orleans Saints were considered the second best team in the NFC behind the San Francisco 49ers. And yes, the Vikings beat the first and second best team in the NFC and then ended up losing to the fourth best team supposedly that year, although that team did go on to win the Super Bowl. But my point is this: let's not talk about 2006 Pittsburgh, 2010 Green Bay, or 1987 Vikings. So what that it's been done before? Does that mean it's possible? Yes, it's a non-zero chance. Absolutely, it's a non-zero chance. But those are long odds, and that's what the Vikings always do. They're playing with long odds, and it hasn't happened yet. So forgive me for wanting to try something different. But anyway, I digress. All right, Greg, what you got? KLC doesn't have the older sage offensive coach to bounce things off or get constructive criticism from. There's something to be said to that, Greg. Absolutely. I totally agree. Stop it, Too Evil. Just you ain't even funny. You are not funny. Stop with this nonsense about Carson Wentz. All right, what you got, Tony? Been asking the same question since Kirk went down. Oh, yeah, there is that. Yeah, you are absolutely correct. Well, I didn't make it under an hour because I'm reading your comments, talking back to you guys. Try to get Andrew Luck to retire. Yeah, that's just not going to happen either. All right, last one of the night. Let's talk about playoffs. Yes, playoffs. The Minnesota Vikings, as I said earlier, have no margin for error to still win this division. They have to win all 3 games, and they have to hope that the Detroit Lions lose their middle game against the Dallas Cowboys. Is it possible that we sweep them and the Cowboys beat them? Yes, it's possible. I wouldn't bet money on it, because if I'm gonna bet money on that, I better be getting like 10-1 odds. Okay, but I digress. So let's just assume, for the sake of conversation, that the division's not going to happen. You're still the 6th seed. You're not catching the Dallas Cowboys. Technically, you could end up with the same record if the Cowboys lose all 3, but that's just not going to happen. That's just I know the Cowboys just got destroyed yesterday by the Buffalo Bills, but they've got the Dolphins. Could they lose that? Sure. Then they got the Lions, but then they got the Washington Commanders in week 18. So we're not catching the Cowboys for the 5th seed. So we're either going to be the 3rd seed. Actually, technically, Tampa Bay. Here's the thing. Let's say we win all 3 of our games and Detroit does lose and we win the division at 10-7. Well, if Tampa Bay wins out, they'll be at 10-7, and we would actually fall to the 4th seed and have to play the Cowboys. I really don't want to see that. I don't want to see that at all. So let's just say for right now, we're playing for that 6 or 7 wild card. Right now, the Rams are at 7-7 as well. You've got the Saints at 7-7. You got the Seahawks at 6-7, and they're hanging tight with Philadelphia right now. But if you win 2 out of your next 3 and you get to 9, outside of New Orleans and the Rams both going 3-0, which is highly unlikely considering that the Rams have the 49ers the last week of the season, and 49ers might still be trying to hold off Philly for that number 1 seed. You only need to win 2 out of your next 3. You should be able to beat Green Bay. So you just need to get 1 against the Lions. Now, is it possible that you could lose both games to the Lions but beat Green Bay and still get in as the 7th seed? Yes, you need a lot of things to go your way. So by and large, regardless of how this roller coaster has taken us up and down and left and right and side to side and upside down and inside out, the Vikings can still make these playoffs. What they could do? Well, if you get Detroit, you could find a way. Playing them 3 out of 4 weeks, could find a way to sneak out a victory. Maybe. I don't think it's going to go much further than that. But for right now, yeah, let's get this. Let's get this game this Sunday against the Lions. Let's ring in the new year with a victory over the Packers, put them out of their misery, by the way. And then whatever happens the last week of Detroit is what happens. It could be a winner take all, and it could be just one of those deals where, yeah, both teams are in the playoffs, and whoever wins the game wins the division and hosts the other team the next week again anyway. That would be something. That would absolutely be something. And for anybody that wants to say fire KOC, if we win the last 3, Detroit loses, and we win this division for more than half of the season without Kirk Cousins, yeah, KOC deserves some flowers for that. Not saying he's above criticism or that he walks on water, but he absolutely would deserve some credit for that. But as far as what other teams we need to worry about, I don't think we're going to need to. I don't want to say we don't need to worry about the Packers, because the second you say that, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. But again, the Rams are at best going to go 2-1. They got the Saints. That's going to be a tough game for them. They got the Giants. That should be an easy win, but the Packers said the same thing. And then, like I said, they got the 49ers. But the other team, the New Orleans Saints, that's the thing, though. You got the Saints and the Rams playing each other. So barring a tie, one's going to win and one's going to lose. But as far as the Saints go, then they've got 2 division games against the Buccaneers and the Falcons, who are still going to be playing for something, particularly the Bucs. So 2-1, you might be able to get in with 1 more win. But 2 more wins all but assures you a playoff spot. You would need 87 things to go against you if you won 2 out of the last 3 to not make the playoffs. So it's all still right in front of us. But as I said at the beginning, there's no more margin for error. There's no more margin of error for the division, and there's very little margin of error for a wild card spot. But again, win 2 out of 3 and you're in. Win 3 out of 3, you're either winning the division or you're going to be the 6th seed and you're going to be playing the Lions anyway. If the Lions somehow beat the Cowboys, even if we beat them this weekend, and then they got nothing to play for, yeah, you can win 2 out of the 3. You could also lose all 3 of the games. So, Kevin O'Connell, you and Brian Flores get back into the laboratory and figure out how you're not going to have these games where it's always close. Figure out a way to step on somebody's throat and be done with them, and figure out a way to not have all of these dumb mistakes, because these mistakes are what's been killing us all season. Okay. Final reset. If you didn't already do so, hit that like button on your way out. Wipe your feet at the door. And if you don't already subscribe, hit that subscribe button for me. But let's get these last bit of comments, and then let's get out of here and watch the rest of this Philadelphia-Seattle game. 17-10. Okay. Going towards the end of the third quarter. Seattle's hanging. Is Jalen Hurts playing in this game? Or did he sit this one? I thought, no, yeah. Jalen, that's not bad for Seattle to only be down 7 with Jalen Hurts playing. I know looks like he hasn't done much, and I know he wasn't feeling good, but at the end of the day, you can only play who you play. All right, Gary, what'd you say here? I'm not taking you. Oh, all right. Do you want the BS media circuit? No, I don't. Let's just leave that one alone. Let's just leave that one alone. No, I have zero desire for Sean Manny. Yes, deer in headlights. Thank you, Mr. Tonic. Thank you, Mr. Does it really matter who we play with KOC and this team inconsistency? I'd rather have us not make it only to get put on the first round. I've given up the ghost on that, Lemmy. I said going into San Francisco, if you lost to San Francisco and started 2-5, to trade off pieces and just play for next year and see what you can get. We're beyond that. We're beyond that at this point. Particularly the coaches and the players, and particularly the owners, are not going to go down that road. They're not going to go down that road. It's one of those deals where, hey, you just accept the results. And yeah, if they do lose all 3, we'll have a top 10 pick. I don't think we're going to. Here's the thing, though, Lemmy. If we lost 2 out of the 3 and the 2 were to Detroit and the 1 win that we got was to Green Bay, I'm not going to be that upset by it. I'm not going to be that upset. As long as we beat the Packers, as long as we sweep the Packers this year, at this point, that's a success. And yes, that's lowering expectations to say the least. But with your 4th quarterback, I suppose that's all we can do. We should have gotten Wentz instead of, oh, stop. Wentz would not have been better. No, he wouldn't have. I want to see us actually make some noise. Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. No, there are no participants. No, I totally get what you're saying, Lemmy. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying at this point, for me, if somebody were to say we can win out and go to the playoffs and lose in the first round, or lose out and get a top 10 pick, I'm going to choose win out because the Packers are one of those games. Yes, if the Packers were not one of those games, I'd lean more towards the lose outside. But don't matter. The Packers are on the schedule. Rule number 1 as a Vikings fan, whether you're one of the people that say, hey, you always play to win, or one of the people that say, hey, just throw the rest of them away and, don't put your chips all in and play for next year. Rule number 1, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, it's always beat the Packers. So that's pretty much all there is to it. All righty. Give me just a quick second here, ladies and gentlemen. With all that being said, I think we're going to get out of here. I only went to an hour and 15. Tomorrow night, 6:30 Central Time on this very channel, under the lights. I'm sure Dave and I are going to have some fun things to talk about after that monstrosity. Want to thank everybody who joined here tonight. Shout out one more time to Gary for the 1999 super chat. Do much appreciate you. Eric in New Mexico. Sorry, buddy. I'm just wrapping it up. So hit that rewind button and enjoy. But thanks for joining me here. That's all this evening, ladies and gentlemen. SKOL to the next episode. And as Prince says, go crazy and punch a higher floor. Good night, everybody.